Hello and welcome to the Clean and Ethical Beauty video series. Over a 6-part series, we've already taken a look at why clean and ethical beauty matters. We've heard from some of the brands innovating in the field, and we've also delved deeper on what's going on in the lab with formulations. And in this episode, we're here to talk about getting the message right about clean and ethical beauty products. What exactly can companies say on pack and in marketing? And how can you communicate a concept that's actually quite complex with no clear definition globally for consumers or industry? Now, I'm delighted to be joined by 2 experts in the field to discuss all of this in more depth. Firstly, we have Dr. Mojan Modaresi, Managing Director of Personal Care Regulatory, a bespoke regulatory and compliance service based in Europe. They've got offices in Europe and the UK, working with a number of global beauty brands. Thanks so much for joining me today, Mojan.
Thank you.
And we're also joined by Eleni Makare, Chief Operating Officer of Base Beauty, a creative agency based in New York, working with leading beauty brands to develop marketing messages to accelerate growth. Thanks so much for joining me, Eleni.
Thanks for having me.
So firstly, with our Getting This Message Right episode, we're going to kick things off with some important context from Mojan. And she's really going to take us through the regulatory landscape in Europe that clean and ethical beauty brands need to operate in, and specifically look more closely at the common areas brands claim in, which is safe and free from products. So over to you, Mojan.
Thanks, Casey. As Casey mentioned, I'm a Managing Director of Personal Care Regulatory. We have offices in the UK and in the EU. A brief summary of what we do and who we are. We are a team of toxicologists and cosmetic scientists, and in a nutshell, we take the pain out of compliance process. During the last 7 years, we helped over 250 brands, and we have done a couple of thousands of safety assessment reports. Our USP is our own PCR tox cloud, and we are so proud of the detailed toxicological profile of ingredients that we have. Our aim is to provide a service for SME and startup brands that they may not have all of the expertise in-house. If we want to have a look at what is really clean beauty and what are the messages, during the last couple of years, we really have a fair share of reviewing the clean claims on the label. But the question here is, if we want to relate clean beauty to sustainability, I'm not really sure if it is a correct definition. Obviously, if we look at the English dictionary, sustainability is not a synonym for clean. So let's consult the dictionary again. Clean means free from dirt, and majority of clean beauty messages focus on either free from claim or safety. Having this definition in mind, let's have a look at how safety of cosmetic product is being assessed in the EU. Any cosmetic product when it's being placed on the market should be complied with the EU regulation 1223/2009. The main principle of this regulation are having a responsible person related to each product, and this responsible person has the responsibility to appoint a qualified safety assessor to the cosmetic product safety report. This responsible person also shall make sure to notify the product on the EU portal, which is called CPAP, and perform cosmetic vigilance, which is basically post-market surveillance after the product is being placed on the market. The main principle of cosmetic safety assessment is risk assessment as opposed to hazard identification. To explain the difference between two terminology, I used an infographic from EFSA, which is European Food Safety, and I believe it explained the difference between two definitions very well. My favorite part is the shark example. As you may see, the shark cannot cause any safety issue if you watch it standing by the sea. and you are not swimming in the sea. This is a very relevant example for ingredient safety. For example, undiluted sodium hydroxide can be very dangerous and irritating to eyes and skin. But when diluted and under certain pH and concentration, it can be completely safe to be used in cosmetic products. Just let's have a closer look at what a safety assessment report is, at what it contains. You may see in this diagram that when we do a safety assessment, it is not just about theoretical tox report. Obviously, part of it relates to looking into chronic toxicity of each ingredient, calculate the margin of safety based on how the product is being used, if it is rinse off or leave off, and what is the target population, dermal absorption of ingredient. But the other part of the safety assessment is related to if the product has acceptable stability when it's being placed on the market, if it has the right microbiological quality, what is the impurity of ingredient, because impurity can play a very important role in safety of finished product. Annex 3 of the EU regulation is a great example of how impurity of an ingredient can identify the safety of the finished product. And above all, how the product is being manufactured. Obviously, all the product being manufactured and being placed in the EU, they have to have a GMP. Going back to the original question, cosmetic products that are being placed on the market are safe and they are going through this process, so we can rightly claim that all the cosmetic products are clean. In that sense, so what would be the differentiation between the clean beauty message and every single cosmetic product that they are placed on the EU market? I also would like to have a very quick look on the regulation regarding the claims. If we look at the regulation regarding claims, which is Article 20, explain this regulation, and the recent guideline on the regulation, we can see that based on the Article 20, the claim should be based on the legally complied. It has to be honest, evidence-based, it has to be fair and truthful, and it has to help the consumer to do informed decision-making process. Again, based on the guideline that recently published on Article 20 on free from claim, I would like to analyze a couple of the claims that they are mainly used for free from. For example, one of the main claims is the cosmetic product that they have the clean beauty message. They want to claim they are safer than another product that doesn't have those claims on the market. Obviously, it is against being truthful, and the reason is all the product, they go through the same process for the safety assessment. So if that case, there is no difference between the safety of a clean beauty and any other product on the market. The other widely used claim is about animal testing, that not tested on animal, or it is against cruelty on animal. Obviously, since 2004, none of the products based on the EU are tested on animal. And since 2009, animal testing are not allowed on ingredients being used in cosmetic products. So this claim is really against honesty, because none of the cosmetic products on the market, they are tested on animal. The other very widely used claim is about free from. For example, free from certain ingredients like SLS or mineral oil. The question here is, every single ingredient that are being used in cosmetic products, they go through the assessment. In the EU, we have the SCCS, which is the Scientific Committee on Consumer Safety, and consists of different experts in fields like toxicology, dermatology, and different disciplines. So this committee, they look into the safety of each ingredient, and based on the different articles and data that are published on safety of the ingredient, that they make a decision. And their decision is not usually based on one specific article in one specific journal. They look into the methodology of the research, they approve if that methodology is correct or not, and then they make a decision on that. So every single ingredient, like mineral oil or SLS, they have been actually through that process. And in that case, it is not really fair to say some certain ingredient that we have the proof for their safety is safer than other ingredient. And it is against the fairness principle. In my last slide, I would like to kind of take your attention to a couple of issues about the claims and about the safety. My question to brand is, we need to kind of say what you really want to say. If it is safe and it is the main purpose of your message, is it really legal? Is it really fair? Or probably it is the time to come in clean about your claims, and we need to have the honest conversation with consumer instead of a clean beauty phrase that doesn't really have any legal definition. Perhaps we need to say why our products are effective, how our product works, how sustainable our supply chain is, and perhaps a better attention to the quality of safety assessment report, and have a communication about all of this process to our consumer instead of claiming something that it is not fair and it is not legal. Thank you for listening, and any question, send us an email.
Thank you so much for that, Mojan. That's really set the context on the European side of things, and I know we'll be able to go into a little bit more depth later on in this episode and take the conversation a bit more global as well. But next we're going to hear from Eleni, who's going to take us through some insight on what considerations have to be taken when working to develop marketing and communication around clean and ethical beauty. And in particular, we'll hear more about the types of tools available for brands to really get that message across to consumers. So over to you, Eleni.
Thank you. So Base Beauty is the omni-channel branding agency hyper-focused in the beauty and wellness industries, and our expertise with clean and ethical brands really predates the trends in the space. So you can see here that some of our clients in the clean and inclusive space include Farm Aesthetics, Victoria Land Beauty, Pausewell Aging, Au Natural Cosmetics, Heritage Store, Eco Tools, and many, many more. And internally, Base Beauty practices our own version of ethical beauty by maintaining agency standards, including minimal retouching, and by creating imagery starring relatable real models of all shapes, hairstyles, skin tones, ages, and personal styles. So we really make an effort to pull back the curtain of perfection on social media and emphasize the all-encompassing spectrum of beauty. So ultimately, our agency creates everything that the consumer sees and touches as she meets and interacts with your brand. Whenever we're working on a project, we think of this consumer that you see here at the center of the matrix and answer the question, why does this consumer care? You know, why will he or she pick your clean product off the shelf at retail over someone else's? Why will they stop scrolling through their Instagram feed and read the stories that you're telling her? So we're communicating your brand's message to her across the entire digital ecosystem through things like branding, strategy, packaging, photo and video content creation, website building, podcasts and event production, social media influencer, and PR. And what's really important is that your consumer hears a cohesive message that she can trust coming to her from all of these different touch points, especially in the gray area that is clean and ethical beauty today. So in the clean and ethical beauty space, it's no longer enough to have a great product formulated from clean ingredients. Our customers are asking for more from their purchase. In fact, they're actually demanding that their purchase stands for something beyond the product's efficacy. So how do we get the message right? First of all, you need to know your consumer. You need to listen to them. And of course, there is a range of clean and ethical beauty consumers, which over the years we've categorized into these three buckets. So we have the loyalist, and these customers are green and clean. They're hyper-educated. They are demanding healthy ingredients and also great payoff and results. They make no exceptions, and they want clean beauty through and through in every product that they use. So some of our clients in this category are Fitglow, Heritage, Farm Aesthetics, brands that are completely plant-based. Then we have the best choice for me, babe. So she values science as well as clean ingredients, and she's making decisions on a case-by-case basis. A great example of this, we've recently coordinated a partnership between Kourtney Kardashian and our client Elta MD. And Kourtney is the consumer who typically does choose the clean products and really values that in her products, but she will make exceptions on a case-by-case basis. And finally, we have the mission-driven mavens. And this consumer values a brand with values. Clean products and an impactful mission really guide her choices when she's choosing products, right? So ingredients do matter, but so do the values and her alignment with them. She's really making her purchase and becoming passionate about the brand because the brand is aligned with her personal values. So now let's dive deeper into how you can make sure that your brand is getting the message right. This is in a case study of our client, Victoria Land Beauty, and she was a brand who was founded as a result of the founder's own skin health and necessity. And the founder, Victoria, really just could not find products that worked for her, so she created her own. And in doing so, she discovered the wondrous healing and health benefits from using clean, organic, natural formulas, and this inspired her to develop a line using only these types of ingredients. So her website, her influencer, her social media, and her PR communications were speaking to that loyalist consumer who really craved those clean and ethical products, who really craved those claims like the free from claims and real transparency around the ingredients and how they would work for her skin. And in the early stages of her brand, Victoria gave birth to her fourth son, Cyrus, who was born with a rare visual impairment. And as Victoria watched Cyrus navigate the world, she began to wonder about his consumer experience and how he could do things like go shopping at the drugstore for a night cream versus a day cream like a sighted consumer could. So Victoria made the decision to position her skincare brand as a vessel for a much bigger cause to make the beauty industry more inclusive. And we worked strategically with her to create the Cyrus system, which is a trademarked tactile recognition system featuring raised symbols. It's not Braille because research showed that today's visually impaired community really doesn't use Braille. So they're symbols which help the user identify the product, and a raised QR code which links back to AudioEnable's product detail. So now other brands are able to leverage the system on their own packaging as well. So when you think about how your brand can get the message right, think about Victoria and how she stayed true to her brand and to her consumers in all communications. So her digital ecosystem now focuses on speaking to the mission-driven mavens. As her brand grew, so does her message and her fan base and her industry footprint. So you want to think about your efforts in each of these categories that are pictured here and how you can really double down on your storytelling to earn your consumers' trust across all the touch points. So Victoria's brand identity, her strategy, and her social media storytelling are focusing on her clean and ethical products and the inclusive piece of it. And her joyful, fun-loving, and maternal personality comes through as well. The packaging and the content creation features the Cyrus system and the bright colors that her consumers knew and loved from the brand's beginning. And it speaks very clearly about the ingredients and the products that are used and that are safe. And her influencer partnerships focus on people who value the efforts that Victoria Land Beauty is making as much as they value the clean and effective products. So this woman that you see here is named Emily. She's a visually impaired consumer. And of course, the PR coverage reflects that as well. So if you really want to get the message right, this holistic marketing optimization approach really does work. When your social, your website, your blog, your email marketing, your influencer partnerships, your corporate social responsibility program, if you have one, your earned media, your user-generated content and amplification, and your retailer support all work together so that you will see results like impressions, awareness, community growth, clicks, and new partnerships and sales. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Eleni. I think between the both of you, we've got some really strong context and insight to kick things off on our discussion about getting the message right on clean and ethical. And it seems only appropriate for me to really kick things off with a very obvious question. How simple is it for the industry to communicate and get the message right on a concept that has no unanimous or clear definition worldwide for consumers or industry? Mojan, did you want to kick things off there?
Well, considering my presentation, you may have this conclusion that I don't believe clean beauty is the terminology that we have to use because it's not legally acceptable. It may not really kind of be on the sixth principle of what we allow to claim in the EU. So I think probably the message can be right if the communication is truthful, honest, and fair. Perhaps we need to find another terminology. Instead of clean, perhaps we have to use the right terminology that our product is safe because of what? Or I don't know, the product is ethical because of what principle? So the truthful communication perhaps is the best option in that case.
So for brands operating within the EU and the context that you've presented there, would you say that those areas are a reference point that perhaps brands could start to look at to ensure that what they're saying is fair and within all of those guidance?
That's absolutely right. Basically, there are the principles that they have to look because that is the regulation. And if they are not following this regulation, when they spend all of this money on social media and different advertising methods, they may be the point that if somebody complain against their unfair claims to the trading standard agency or in the EU in kind of, the advertising agency in each member of a state, they may not have any answer to that. So it is definitely very important to look at the 6 important principles of what their claim should be and how they have to do the claim.
Now, Eleni, you work in North America primarily with brands in that space, which are operating in a very different regulatory context. We'll go into more depth a little later on that. But for you, what are your thoughts on how easy it is to communicate on clean, given there is no clear definition?
Yeah, I mean, I think while it's very difficult to define this category right now, it doesn't have to be as difficult to get the message right in your marketing. So, just jumping off what you said, Mojan, the consumer is really craving transparency and honesty from your brand, and you can still deliver that. You know what's in your products, what you can offer her, and what stories you can tell. So focus on the things that you can share and that you can tell with her and make her feel comfortable knowing, rather than the things that you can't define.
Now, I'm always curious when it comes to clean beauty. This is a global movement that we've seen across all continents and touch points everywhere in the globe. Now, Eleni, can you speak to what clean beauty means for the consumer in North America? What you think? You mentioned quite a lot in your presentation, but how can brands sort of skew themselves to position accordingly?
Mm-hmm. I think there's definitely, this is definitely a big conversation in North America's market as well. And clean beauty is still, a lot of people have their own definitions of it, but the consumer standpoint, rather than an industry standpoint, I think she'll define it as something that is using products that she recognizes that are safe for her, that are organic and natural, and that can really, they're not harmful products that will affect her skin or her body in any negative way.
Okay. And Mojan, do we see any different, Eleni just touched there that, they're looking for a safe product. I know you work with global companies in the beauty business around safety and product safety. Do you see any differences on a global level or of expectations or regulations on that point?
Oh, very good questions, because if you look at every single regulatory system in the world, from China, USA, and EU, there is nothing in any regulation that says that your product should not be safe. It is the basic principle in every single regulation. It is true that every country, they may look at the safety and how they define the safety in different, and they have a different approach. For example, in China, you have to register your product, and the authority will look at the document, they go through all of this animal testing, and based on that, they conclude that your product is safe to be placed on the market. In the EU, we have this detailed assessment, and there is a responsible person. Even in the US, that there is not a detailed definition of how the safety should be assessed, but we have CIR, which is the Committee for Ingredient Review, and they review the safety of ingredients, and the manufacturer and the brand who place the product on the market, they are responsible for the safety of the product. So I think safety in any regulation is the first message. And I found it very difficult if we want to kind of consider this message only and, equal it to clean beauty, because I don't see any differentiation for brands that they want to say our product is safe, so all of the product on the market should be safe. So what is the differentiation here? And I found it very interesting, actually.
Do you think that, because there are some interesting points, if we look at clean beauty from a consumer expectation point of view versus what the regulation demands and the science shows, there are some contrasting points there. One very easy, notable one to bring up is this idea of everything having to be natural. Eleni, you referenced there that North American consumers seek out natural organic products. Now, a synthetic ingredient doesn't necessarily mean it's not a clean or ethical beauty product. And certainly many of those ingredients can be very safe as well. So when we're talking about getting this message right to that end consumer, do we need to be more considerate of what they're expecting to hear and what they want to be talked to about? Or should brands really strip it back and come from the regulation and science? Eleni, do you have any idea, perhaps maybe what your clients think on that, or what you've worked on?
Yeah, from a marketing lens, I think it's definitely important to listen to your consumer, understand her appetite for this information. And I think that brands who invest in really proving their claims, like B Corp certification or Leaping Bunny or vegan certified, organic certified, anything like that, those are appreciated by the customer. And the customer who's really seeking out these values and is valuing clean beauty, she's going to use these claims as a lens to really determine if the brand is right for her. And without any of those claims, it's going to be harder for her to curate her choices.
Mojan, what are your thoughts on where this message needs to start from?
Well, there are two issues here. One issue is using certain logos for the brand. Obviously, when you use a certain logo, you have to kind of abide the regulation that logo and NGO actually present. And you are telling to your consumer that, you follow the rules and it is obviously acceptable. And if it has the market for the brand, that is totally fine. But when using very vague words like natural, organic, without actually giving the definition, what you mean by that, I don't think that it would be a very honest message to the consumer. And in terms of the legality, we don't have any legal definition for natural, and everybody can use natural. Mineral oil is natural, it comes from earth. So it's better to be very honest when we talk to our client, because in that method, you can actually have a sustainable communication with the clients.
I think that's so interesting, isn't it? Because there are a lot of certifications out there that many brands are leveraging. Eleni, it sounds like it gives a bit of oomph in the consumer's eyes. Do you think that it's quite a good structured way, a good structured approach to communicate what your clean and ethical beauty brand is about?
Yes, I think it is. I mean, I think that there's definitely there's other things you can do, but having those things really definitely gives you credibility, and it helps the consumer to know that you're making these efforts and that you are following the regulations that we do know that exist, especially when she's interested in products that are in this grayer area.
And Mojan, what are your thoughts on the certification method of communicating things? Because really, when you're working with these big certifiers, it's all very independent, it's thoroughly verified. So you can be fairly certain that every measure has been taken to reflect what that certification represents, right?
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. Based on part of the product information file, that when we put all of the document together, we definitely look into the label review. And if brand, they have their own kind of label, because many brands nowadays, they come up with own definition of what is ethical, because ethical is kind of the moral approach to, and it really depends how you look at it and how you view that ethical approach. We have seen that many brands, they come with their own definition and they create their own logo. As far as you have the enough substantiation, if you're obviously using a logo from an institution, you have to follow the rules, you have to have the certification. And if you want to have your own view, you have to have a proper substantiation that has to be fair, legal, and truthful.
Mm. And beyond certifications, what I'm particularly interested in, and I think, Eleni, you'll have lots to say on this, is that we see more and more beauty brands working with influencers, brand ambassadors, through social media channels. How can a brand be certain that their message and what they want to communicate on Clean and Ethical can be maintained when working with the likes of an influencer or a brand ambassador?
That's a great question. And influencer marketing and ambassador partnerships are a huge way for brands, especially brands starting out, to get the word out there about their products. So I think the best thing you can do is really be specific in who you're targeting for these partnerships, and make sure that that person is going to be a strong, credible mouthpiece for your brand. This consumer should probably be somebody who values clean and ethical beauty throughout her whole life. It wouldn't just be a one-off partnership with your brand, so that she can speak to the things that she understands, and she can really speak to the claims that your brand offers as well.
Mojan, do you think that it's possible for a consumer brand ambassador or an influencer to grasp clean and ethical? Can they be trusted? Can it be put in their hands to communicate with the consumer?
Well, again, I'm not very fan of using clean beauty expression, but in terms of using influencer for kind of selling the product, there is a regulation. So obviously, when influencer is advertising a product, they have to kind of declare that it's advertising for a product, and they are paid for that. And when they are communicating the value of the product, it has to be based on all of these 6 principles again, because they are kind of brand ambassador, and all of the claims can be considered from the claims from the brand. So if an influencer telling about a medical property of a cosmetic product, obviously it is going to be the situation that the brand can be into trouble because of using the influencer that has not been trained properly. So my suggestion is, if you are using influencer, it would worth kind of telling them what they can do in terms of regulation and what they cannot do. So you make sure that everything is properly legal, and you won't come into trouble after spending all of the money for marketing.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. And I want to close things. We could speak about this for hours. It's a really important topic. But just to close, we're coming short for our last 5 minutes here. Eleni, what do you see the biggest challenges and opportunities are for the future of getting the message right on clean and ethical?
I think the biggest challenge will just be continuing to navigate this gray area. But I think that the industry, I've even been a part of several different discussions and panels over the course of the past few months, where people are really trying to come to a collective decision and definition on this. So there are efforts being made to define this space, and I think it'll continue in that direction. So the biggest opportunity, I would say, we're seeing a lot of consumers as a trend coming out of the COVID world. She wants to really trust her brands even more than she has in the past. So she's looking for transparency. She's looking for honesty. She's looking for that mission-driven alignment. So the biggest opportunity would really be finding a way to double down on your storytelling, your hero products, and your brand values that she can really latch onto.
Brilliant. And Mojan, your thoughts on the opportunities and challenges ahead?
Well, I think Eleni mentioned a couple of very important points that I would like to emphasize them. And honestly, in my view, would be a most important message that a brand can actually, communicate with their consumer. Honesty and fairness. If the brand actually, have these 2 important messages in mind, they definitely can actually be a successful brand on the market. But if they come up with claims that they are vague, they are not defined, and they are not really fair, obviously there are going to be backlash on that claim. So my recommendation is definitely be away from all of these not fair claims and stick to what really can be beneficial for consumers.
Fantastic. Well, look, thank you very much to the 2 of you for taking time out of your day to delve into this relatively complex area. I really appreciate both of your efforts and your insights really in tackling this topic. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching. What's left for me to say is that we've got an episode next week where we're going to actually take a very much closer look at this whole concept of clean and ethical beauty from farm to face, we're calling it. So really looking at the supply chain challenges and opportunities and how industry can absolutely ensure that it's a clean and ethical product from A to Z. Thank you very much for watching.